What is the best loophole on an exam that you've ever witnessed? My economics teacher, Mr. Hayes, was absolutely notorious for his brutal final exams. This dude would fail half the class every semester, and everyone knew it. The final was worth 60% of our grade, so if you bombed it, you were basically screwed. But here's the thing about Mr. Hayes. He was old school, like really old school. He always made his tests multiple choice with these ancient Scantron sheets where you had to fill in the little bubbles with a number 2 pencil. And he had this weird obsession with making everything fair and standardized. 2 weeks before the final, he handed out the rules. Standard stuff. No phones, no notes, no talking. But then he said something that made my friend Danny's eyes light up. You may only use a number 2 pencil. Any other writing instrument will result in automatic failure. Danny raised his hand. What about mechanical pencils? Mr. Hayes adjusted his glasses. Number 2 pencils only, the yellow wooden ones. I don't want any confusion about lead darkness or consistency. Most of us groaned, but Danny just smiled. The night before the exam, Danny called me freaking out with excitement. Dude, I figured it out. Hayes said we can only use number 2 pencils, right? He never said we couldn't use more than one. I thought he'd lost his mind from studying too much. Test day arrives, and Danny walks in with this massive pencil case. I'm talking like 50 number 2 pencils, all sharpened to perfect points. Mr. Hayes noticed but didn't say anything since they were technically all number 2 pencils. The exam started, and Danny immediately began his strategy. Instead of just filling in one bubble per question, he started filling in multiple bubbles for each question with different pencils. Like for question 1, he'd fill in B with pencil number 1, then A with pencil number 2, then D with pencil number 3. Mr. Hayes walked by and stopped dead. What are you doing? Danny looked up innocently. Using number 2 pencils, sir. You said we could only use number 2 pencils, so I'm using several number 2 pencils. You can't fill in multiple answers. Danny pulled out a printed copy of the test instructions. Actually, the rule sheet just says to use number 2 pencils and fill in the bubbles completely. It doesn't say we can only fill in one bubble per question. Mr. Hayes grabbed the paper and read it 3 times. His face turned red, then white, then red again. The instructions literally just said, fill in bubbles completely with number 2 pencil only. This is ridiculous, Mr. Hayes muttered. Is it against the rules? Danny asked. Mr. Hayes stared at the paper for like 2 full minutes while the whole class watched. Finally, he sighed. Continue with your exam. Danny kept going with his strategy. For every question, he'd fill in what he thought was the right answer with one pencil, then fill in his second choice with another pencil, and sometimes even a third option. He basically hedged his bets on every single question. When time was up, Mr. Hayes collected all the Scantron sheets, but he held Danny's separately. I need to figure out how to grade this. The next day, Mr. Hayes looked exhausted. He called Danny to his desk after class. I spent 4 hours trying to figure out how to handle your creative interpretation, he said. Technically, the Scantron machine reads the darkest mark as the answer. Since you used the same pencils for multiple marks, it's reading whichever bubble you filled in most completely. Danny had actually been strategic about this too. For his primary answers, he'd filled the bubbles in completely and pressed hard. For his backup answers, he'd filled them lighter. You got an 89, Mr. Hayes said, shaking his head. Without your system, you would have gotten maybe a 72 based on your primary answers alone. Mr. Hayes updated his exam rules the very next semester to specify 1 pencil, 1 answer per question. But by then, Danny had already graduated with honors.